Hello. Do I look like I'm in a hostage video here? Let's turn that down a little bit. There we go. Beautiful. How's it going, everybody? It's me. Comic Crack, and it's Sunday. Let's talk about some stuff today. So this afternoon, I had a chat with Rasa. It was on my channel. If you want to go and check it out, please feel free. If you don't follow her already, follow Rasa as well too. She does a lot of great drawing shorts and things. She's been doing, I think, for over a year at this point, well over a year at this point, some kind of journals where she's drawing out panels from comics or pieces that catch her attention from some comics that she's been reading. So sort of her version of doing the book that I do every year. Speaking of the book, it's at 175. We're June 1st today, so halfway through the year. As usual, it's striving for that 500 goal. We'll see if it happens. Speaking of books, I got a couple of new books, so why don't we start with that? I got this one actually a few weeks ago, and I just keep forgetting to talk about it. I did kind of go and grab the Crumb book by Dan Nadell, Cartoonist Life. I haven't started it yet. It looks great. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic talking about Crumb. But yes, I think that's going to be a solid read when I get to it. And then more recently, I got this, and I have started in on it already. So Night of Power by Robert Fisk. This is the betrayal of the Middle East. Robert Fisk was a war journalist, I guess, for 4 decades, 40 years or something, I believe. Was a best-selling author and the Independent's Middle East correspondent. He spent 40 years in the region, and his work spanned nearly 5 decades, covering conflicts in the Arab world, the former Yugoslavia, and Northern Ireland. So he passed away, I believe, 2017. There is a video, there's an interview with his wife that Chris Hedges does, or his ex-wife, I guess, because I think they had separated even before he died. That's well worth your time. If you're interested in him. There's also a 3-part documentary. I think it was on Discovery? Stand by. Let's see. Because I did find it online and download it. And it was called From Beirut to Bosnia. Yes, it was a Discovery Channel documentary from 1991. I don't know the full story of the documentary. I haven't looked into it. I found it odd that there was only 3 parts. It seemed like maybe because he's got another book like this too, the first one. There's one before this that kind of talks about a chunk. This sort of completes the history of the Middle East. And it seems like maybe he was trying to do something like this back in 91 with that documentary series. It sort of ends abruptly. It doesn't really wrap up or anything. So I'm wondering if it's something that was canceled, not received, shelved. I don't know the backstory, but it feels like there's some sort of backstory to it. So some solid reading there. What else did I want to talk about? All sorts of shit, honestly. This VO3, I guess we could talk about. VO3 from Google, this new AI software. I was just watching the Due Dissidence guys, and they were talking about it. The last segment was about VO3. Obviously, for me personally, future of humanity aside for 1 second, for me personally, working in film, I've thought for quite a long time. I always find it odd on one hand that any of these technological advances or advancements are always like I did with AI when all these artists kind of got their buns in an extra knot, their top knots extra tangled. I always thought it was a bit odd to be worried about it from an art standpoint as far as your ability to potentially make money if that's what you're there for, or a message or whatever it is, when the implications on society as a whole, I think far, far, far outweigh that. That said, because I do work in an industry where it is a big part of it, I am curious. And I think maybe the preface of all this is, as usual, I'm just some fucking guy sitting in his basement and I don't know shit. And I think with stuff like this, nobody truly knows. And if they say that they know exactly what's going to happen, they're fucking liars. I don't think that anybody can predict. I don't think if we went back 50 years from this point, anybody could predict AI at this level so rapidly. Even when we look at like CG and stuff, there was a real long time where kind of digital effects and things in filmmaking, it really took a long time for that to kind of, for those edges to soften. Now, this VO3 thing isn't flawless. If you watch the videos, there's an oddness to way the people move. Some videos, it's a little more evident and some it's not. So I think the first thing is first educating ourselves as to what is AI and what isn't, and doing that ourselves as opposed to taking somebody's word for it. Also, being very skeptical of what you're seeing, I think, is always a thing, especially now. I'm curious about the way we tell stories. Maybe I've talked about this here. I know that I've talked about it with people that I know in the industry or whatever. It seems bizarre to me. It's always seemed bizarre to me that we think that the form of storytelling that is movies that we have now is going to be something that we'll always have, when if we look at existence in general, it's such a fucking small blip. And I think that's a real big part of it's. I understand why we don't think like this for the most part, because it can get overwhelming. I'm a person who can wake up in cold sweats in the middle of the night thinking about like existence that is no longer there and what that means, and the, you know, kind of trying to wrap my head around it, this existentialist kind of fucking nightmares. So I understand why as humans our minds aren't there. You can't kind of get anything done if you're locked into that. But completely ignoring that ignores the fact of history as this very, I don't know if it's fixed or if it's fluid. I don't know what I want to say, but looking at it as a whole and recognizing our place in it to better allow us to kind of look at what's come before and what's after. And I'm not just talking from like reading a book on the Middle East history. I'm talking like just kind of the idea of how things change, what that means. There's conversations around AI right now that are about jobs not being created. And the example that I only saw a tiny clip of something, someone involved with AI, I don't remember who it was specifically, had an analogy along the lines of, look at the lamplighters when they were walking around doing their job. It's a job that if you ask some younger people, they wouldn't know what the fuck that was. At that time, though, was there any sort of conscious ability of that individual to look ahead and understand that this might not be a thing? Well, probably not, because the whole shift of the way things kind of occurred. And maybe that's not the best example, but I mean, maybe even go further back. And this idea of specific jobs and a way of living as being something that's always going to be the way, as we're stuck in capitalism, not being able to see the fucking exit. And in order to get there, you got to pass by the goddamn aisle with the chocolate bars. The ability to kind of not see our place in time and history and not be able to look at what's potentially coming makes it frustrating, makes it difficult, makes it, I want to give up all of these things, right? Why bother? Let's just talk about fucking comic books. What are you talking about? What am I talking about? I'm trying to say that as much as we don't know, I think the only thing that we can do is kind of prepare for the inevitable. So I think that preparing for the inevitable is educating yourself, is ensuring that you recognize some of these things within AI and not necessarily put yourself all into it and research it, but don't completely ignore it, like as if you can just make it go away. As the saying goes, the genie's out of the bottle. You're not stuffing this shit back in. There's no fucking way. So do you have issues with it? Absolutely, you can have issues with it. I've got issues with it. I think on a creative side, it's a fun little tool. For sure it is. I've used it myself. I haven't made any of that a secret. Do I think that the other implications are far more damaging? For sure I do. Am I worried a little bit about my industry and about how I'm going to, what's going to happen to my industry? We're seeing work in Manitoba in film on a dramatic decline. To start off the year, 3 months into the year, and having one or two non-union shows going was very unusual. So this feels like we've jumped back in time, and that's due to a million different reasons that are far too dull to get into here, I'm sure. But again, this idea of this new form of storytelling, yes, it's going to affect art. Yes, it's going to affect artists. Am I worried about my job? Yes, of course I am. Do I have the skills to do other jobs? Not particularly, to be totally blunt. I've always worked manual labor, so I guess I could go back to manual labor, but I can't get out of a fucking chair sometimes because my back hurts so much. So I am worried about that, but I'm more worried about what it says about where it's going to lead us, and what it says about how we're going to be able to discern information, and what that says about a generation that, some parts of the generation, I'm looking at my son who's 19 years old. He has an interest in politics, not as much as I do, but he's not oblivious to it. But I don't think that he's not like me when I was 19 and very much politically minded and very much looking to kind of fight the system, et cetera, all of these kind of things, these ideals that I guess I still have a part of, considering what I'm doing these days. But that's the stuff more that I worry about. What it's going to say are people just going to tap out of online and trying to find out information about what's going on in the world? Is that kind of the end goal of allowing this to kind of go unchecked? The worry with internet and technology, specifically, I would say social media, is now you're in touch with people all over the world. Now we have these web cameras where you can see someone's surroundings, even if you've never traveled before. And everybody knows that the more you travel and see the world, the better understanding you have of just people in general. But it's good to see how people live in other parts of the world. It can only benefit you on your kind of outlook. And in turn, that can benefit you from the propaganda that's being thrown at you, right? So is this unchecked? What are the facets, what are the areas or the tentacles of the reasons why it's unchecked? And there's going to be a ton of them, right? I don't want to go too long, but I do feel like I'm on a bit of a roll here, so I'll just kind of finish this off. So all these tentacles, obviously capitalism and selling us shit is one of them. Information, I would say, is a huge one. And honestly, cutting us off from each other is another one. Once you have a population that's cut off, it's easier to control. And then it always comes to the question of, is this purposeful? I don't think it's one of those things of like, I don't necessarily need to get on the phone with somebody and talk about what my goals are in life and where I am in life, and then make sure that we align and have a conversation and have a group meeting. I think that when you hit a certain level, especially now monetarily, your goals are going to align with other people that are in your position's goals, regardless of having any sort of conversation. There's this self-preservation aspect of it, right? So what's going on is incompetence mixed with some people that are probably trying to direct things, absolutely, and a variety of things. So that's what I think about all day. What do you think about? I think that's the end of a sentence or a thought. Just on basic facts and descriptions of items on eBay, I see AI being wrong more often than it's right. And again, that's exactly it. And for the most part, most of the AI that I interact with, you can very much see the edges, and people, and specifically artists that I follow that are playing with AI, are leaning into that to create these kind of surreal and horrific worlds. And it is crystal clear that it is not reality, but playing with that reality. That analogy was stolen from Danny DeVito's character in Other People's Money. Which one was that? Was that hitting the exit thing that I was saying there? If that's true, I'm not aware. That wasn't a conscious thing. So why don't we move off of that and talk about music? So, oh, the one about lamplighters. Oh, that's what it was. Ah, interesting. I didn't realize that, Forgerelli. I saw some AI guy talking about it, so that gives it even more context. Yes, good one. Search for Buggy Whips DeVito. Okay, I'll search for that for sure. Let's see, where did I want to go here? Let's do this one because everybody knows how much I love Heimat Der Katastrophe. I've talked about them for quite a long time. They're based out of, they're based out of Italy. They do limited run cassettes. They also sell everything digitally. I made an order a week or two ago at this point, a week ago, I'm not sure, for this tape here, which is a tribute to Wendy Carlos. And of course, Bach. So I ordered a copy of this. I ordered a copy of a, what else did I get? Teeth, shit, is it Teeth of Glass? Is that what they're called? Why am I blanking on their goddamn names? Yes, Teeth of Glass. Yes, this one right here. This particular release. Teeth of Glass, aside from me forgetting their name and completely drawing a blank, are actually one of my favorites that Heimat has put out. There's some incredible music from Teeth of Glass that Heimat has put out over the years. And then the other one that unfortunately I missed out from Heimat, but I actually found the artist himself and ordered a copy of this Tiny Tongue. I got to tell you, you got to listen to this. You got to listen to this album, and I'll show you another one that he's done. So first of all, the artist behind this has about 10 different musical projects. I've been speaking to him a little bit over email. And he was saying that he just he can't stop creating music. He just can't kind of stop it. It's all sorts of genres, mostly sort of fitting in the kind of, I don't know if it's called hyper pop or some sort of pop-ish type of world, even though it's odd. One of the things that impresses me about his stuff, and specifically this one, is there's so many tracks on here that are amazingly composed, that have this real great. Heimat Der Katastrophe sort of mainly focuses on dungeon synth, and then they've expanded over the years to kind of explore other territories, whether that's fake soundtracks, oddball children's music. This is the packaging as well too, so I'm also very excited to get this because all of the physical releases that Heimat does are gorgeous. They do a really, really great job at the physical releases. This is such a great album. It sort of sits in that dungeon synthy kind of world, but like I said, there's a lot more going on. There's a lot more orchestration. There's some other elements that you don't normally hear in dungeon synth. I would also say that this is a person who possibly has, and I said it in my little thing here that I put on the page, that possibly has some influences from like easy listening or exotica music, because there's elements and changes throughout some of these songs that really sit in that world, the lounge music kind of world. It's really, really a fun release. So this is a compilation of 4 EPs that Tiny Tongues has put out. I then went and scored the other 3 digitally because none of the stuff, 99% of the stuff that he releases under all of these monikers, they only exist digital only. There's only a couple of actual cassettes out. So I bought the other Tiny Tongue EPs, and I think these ones were all name your own price. So if you want to pay 50 cents for them, you can pay 50 cents for them. I would encourage you to pay something to the artist, but if you choose to pay less, that's on you. It's all worth listening to. It's worth supporting. I'm so impressed. And one of the other projects that I'm impressed with is this one here. And it'll be Pop It Rocka Rolla. So Joshua Rush Crawford is his name. And this is a solo. A lot of the band seem to be solo. I should also say that he even has a black metal band as well. So really running the gamut. This one, I would say, sort of fits in the world of Queens of the Stone Age, Eagles of Death Metal, which was kind of their side thing. It sort of, I guess, maybe more Eagles of Death Metal, honestly. It really kind of sits in that jangly pop. And this Lock and Load, even the family, like, we are addicted to this song. This entire EP is really, really good. So as usual, I'll make sure that I put links for all this stuff in the description here. But Lock and Load, and even he was saying when I spoke to him that that's one of his favorite songs he's ever recorded. He's actually doing a reworked version of it for one of his other projects, his pop project. So I'm curious to hear that. But there's a quality to this entire EP that's really fantastic. So I'd strongly recommend you listen to this stuff if you're at all curious about anything I've talked about here. And again, here's some AI. I'm assuming that's AI generated images for album covers. So that's just what I have to say about the music. I also wanted to highlight one other artist, a Palestinian black metal act called Zalaam right here. So I'm going to put links to this as usual. Free Palestine. Listen to this stuff. Support this artist. This is pretty great. I think when I was reading, I read a couple of interviews with him, and his name is going to escape me right now. They were framing it as he is the only like metal or black metal artist in the region. Black metal inherently anti-colonialist music is at its very core, so it makes complete sense that there would be Palestinian artists creating black metal music. So really great stuff. Check that out. And then what else was there music-wise that I wanted to talk about? I think that was it. Let's go back to that page so I don't lose it. Stop share. I think that was it for music. Let's see. If you're already on Bandcamp, one of my all-time top 5 bands got back together after 25 years. Oh shit! What band, Forgerelli? It's like they never stopped, and they're using one of my photos in the album. Well, shit. What is it? Let me look it up and add it to something to listen to and check out. Let's open that page, and I will wait. Deadguy. Okay. So there you go, everybody. Deadguy. Let's punch that in right now. New Jersey. Is it near-death travel services there, Forgerelli? Is that the one we should be looking at? Oh, shit. Relapse Records, Forgerelli. Huge comic fans. Amazing. That's amazing. Yes, near-death travel services. Let's, oh shit, one song is named Forever People because they're huge comic fans. That's incredible. So Relapse Records, I'm sure I've talked about Relapse Records over the years here. Too many fucking links open. Here we go, this one here. I'm sure we've talked about Relapse Records here over the years. Relapse and Release Records were huge importance to me in the mid-90s. It was through Release that I first heard Merzbow, the Pulse Demon album, and Relapse had a fucking shit ton of amazing metal. A couple that pop to mind: Flesh Parade, Gore Beyond Necropsy, Human Remains. Mortician was fun for a bit. Nile, they put out Nile, etc., etc. Cephalic Carnage, Soylent Green. there were so many names in the kind of extreme metal and then grindcore side of things that they put out over the years. I think they did the reissue of the Repulsion stuff, which is a very early influence on grindcore as kind of a style of music. So that's cool. Deadguy is not a name I'm familiar with, though, but I will have to check it out. Hey, look at that. There's a cassette. So is the cover your photo there for Jarelli, or something inside the album itself? As I ask you that question, not in StreamYard. Here we go. I'll put that link in here as well too. That's amazing for Jarelli. So then we'll just have a quick talk about, before we get into the comics. So one thing that I watched again kind of ties in with comics as well. The live photo inside. Okay, perfect. Pee-wee's Playhouse. There's a documentary. There's a 2-part documentary on Paul Rubens, Pee-wee Herman, that I would strongly encourage you to watch. I think they're both around the 90-minute mark. Part 1 kind of ends off just after Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and he's about to start the TV show, has been given the okay for the TV show. So it follows that from, his early career and stuff. Some of the footage they have of early Pee-wee Herman performances, they've got some footage of the very first Pee-wee's Playhouse that was a stage play, where I think he said they performed to like 100 people. There's a really interesting dynamic between him and the director. You do get to see a lot of his personal life that he was always very quiet about. I mean, I knew it, but I don't know if I ever officially knew it, that he was gay. But it was one of those things that he really did a lot of work to not share with people. Obviously, at a certain time in his life, a whole bunch of stuff happened, and all of that stuff is covered in the second part. But what I love is I love seeing the old Playhouse stuff. I love seeing some of the bits. I love seeing some of the ideas that they had. I love the fact that he had all these oddball artists around him to create something that had its subversive elements for kids, because that's something else I've been thinking about recently. Again, going back to the thing about time and our place in it. These moments of offering windows for people at whatever age at another world or subversive ideas or whatever it is. Like when we talked about Andor, for example, there's going to be people that watched Andor that I'm hoping will then get tapped into looking down these rabbit holes of YouTube and finding more information of maybe things that they weren't aware of. I think that that's a win when it comes to art. If you can get people to start to open up their mind to different ideas that maybe they haven't thought about before or haven't been presented to themselves in a way. So Pee-wee's Playhouse had some of those subversive elements, especially around sexuality, but a lot about thinking for yourself and independence and stuff. And then, of course, having Gary Panter design everything is just a stroke of fucking brilliance. It all looks incredible. Very, very, very well done documentary. The one thing I did want to talk about before we get into comics, in that documentary, one of the things that stood out for me was in part 2, there was 2 kind of, and again, his later history, I'm not super familiar with, so I'm just taking this from the documentary. Some of this was the first time I've ever heard of it. So forgive me if there's a whole bunch of other stuff out there that I'm just ignorant of. I'm not speaking from a place of authority. The one moment that he had that I do very much remember was when he was caught diddling himself in the adult movie theater, and kind of the uproar, because I do remember at the time scratching my head and thinking that everybody around me were fucking prudes. It just seemed to me incredible that at that time you're going to watch pornos in an adult theater and then you're going to get arrested because you had your dick out and you were playing with yourself. It's just so bizarre to me, from books that I've read about 42nd Street, for example, and some of the stuff that is out there about those type of things. All that and more happened in those theaters at any given moment. The fact that some people would get up in arms, or there was an attempt to kind of discredit him, or whatever the attempt was, is just insane. One of the things that did make me happy, though, was the fact that a lot of the fans were kind of like, we don't give a shit, or we support you anyway. Even the ones who were maybe more religious leaning, they forgave him and said, we just want you to come back because we love you so much. So that sort of helped it a little bit. The second one I wasn't familiar with, the one where his house was raided and some pornography was taken from him and he was accused of being a pedophile. Now, again, this is the stuff where I'm only going by what the documentary said. I don't know anything about this stuff. In the documentary, they talk about the fight that they ended up having because there wasn't any pornography that was underage kids. And they started showing his collections. He was a huge collector. He had all these adult magazines. And a lot of them were like kind of 60s era, 50s or 60s era, maybe men's magazines with, muscular dudes posing naked and things. So it again felt like this idea to him that the association that you still deal with nowadays, not as much as is in the past, this homosexuality equating pedophilia, homosexuals are going to diddle your kids. That's just kind of an automatic assumption, and how that kind of destroyed him. And the fights that they ended up having, I think that the prosecution finally had to relent that there was actually only one image that they were worried about within all of it. And if it's the same image they showed on the documentary, it was a close-up of a guy from about here to here, clearly naked, potentially looked like might have been 17, but also might have been 19. And there was no real reference. There was no actual nudity. So it was so he did have to take a plea. He did have to, etc., do all these things. So it really just destroyed his career, as Gore Vidal is saying. And again, I wasn't aware of this. I don't know how I would have missed it, but I guess, you're not tapped into one celebrity's career your whole life. But so it was news to me. And again, the way they presented it and the stuff that they showed was really, it just always comes back to people talking shit. And again, talking about the internet and the downside of it, a lie is going to travel around the earth before the truth gets out the door. Isn't that the expression? Something like that. And the fact that people love to kind of get into gossip and look to maybe delegitimize or destroy someone's life and career is unbelievable. The one that happened this week, just recently, actually, was what happened with Glenn Greenwald, where there was some footage. There was some footage leaked about his private life. Again, everybody who knows who Glenn Greenwald is, independent journalist. A lot of independent journalists cite him as kind of like he's the guy who started it. Should we just do the usual caveat? Glenn Greenwald is like every other human being that I've ever met in my life. I don't agree with anybody 100% of the time. So now that caveat's out of the way, it's fucking ridiculous that you would again try some of this, and especially the kinds of things that Greenwald covers. He talks a lot about Israel-Palestine, of course. He talks a lot about corruption, etc., etc. He's not afraid to kind of confront power face to face. So there was some video leaked him in private moments with, I don't even know if it was his husband, who's now since deceased, or if this is somebody new. Either way, I don't fucking care. So one of the things that this reminded me of, thinking of the Pee Wee Herman one, how it destroyed his career, the way not only Glenn has dealt with this one, but in a moment of Twitter being, again, to my mind, Twitter isn't as much of a shithole as everybody seems to claim it is. There is a block button. You don't have to listen to people. You can curate your experience instead of fucking censoring people all the goddamn time. You can just not follow and block people, and you never have to hear from them ever again. So the way that the Twitter universe and people from all sorts of political stripes came out and said pretty much the same thing, like immediately within 24 hours, was very much encouraging and very much a contrast to maybe, and again, we're dealing with a bit of different dynamics here. Someone being accused of being a pedophile and somebody engaging in personal, private sex, kink play or whatever, right? But why is everybody so fucking prudish? And I guess one of the things that is, again, nice about this instant is that there's a lot of people that aren't being prudes about it. They're going, who the fuck cares? what he does in the privacy of his own home. I don't give a shit who he wants to fuck or how he wants to fuck them, as long as it's two consenting adults. Who gives a shit? Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the theories, but the other one is obviously Mossad. There's all these, U.S. government things, etc. There's a lot of things that, and again, he claims that he knows who did it, and they're very close to kind of revealing it. I mean, if anybody's going to find it, it's going to be this guy. And then Gore talking about the Pee Wee Herman incident. That incident destroyed his career. He became persona non grata in Hollywood and in public perception. Yeah. So it's a hell of a documentary. I would encourage you to watch it. Domino Comics also has a sale going on. Getting into comics now, there is I don't know if there's a sale link. Yeah, here we go. So there is a link at the Domino Books store. 2025 sale up to 50% off, free shipping. This applies for people only in the United States of America. So if you're into Domino Books, which you should be if you watch this channel, I'm sure you'd know some of the stuff there. Check them out. So all of that stuff out of the way, let's talk comics. Let's start off easy. USA. So I got a copy of Adventure Time #1 because it wasn't enough to have 2 other copies. I had to get a third because there's a James Stokoe cover. So I'm a sucker just like everybody else is. I am not impervious to artists that I love doing comic covers. So there you go. That it's like it comes with a sticker sheet as well. Most exciting for me is a Derek Ballard Tree Trunks sticker on that sticker sheet, which will find its way onto either the filing cabinet or the computer. I haven't decided yet. Yeah, so there's that. Adventure Time issue #2 also came out, and that's this one here. I won't take it out because it's a pretty quick response of, if you like the show, you'll like this. It's just goofy fun. Again, the main reason I wanted it was for the Derek Ballard stuff. And every single Sunday, I forget to take those comics out of the drawer. One day I'll remember and we'll look at some Derek Ballard. Yeah, so a fun book. Worth your time for sure. 420. Weird time where we are supposed to be sexually liberated, but puritanical. Next one. Exactly right. You're 100% right about that. 420. Well said. Another one that maybe doesn't need much conversation. This is Mothra, Queen of the Monsters, issue #3 in this series. I'll say that this one, issue #3, read better than issue #2. But the main draw of this is the art in this book. I think it's really, really solid all around for the art side of things. The story is good enough to get you through. #2 just kind of introduced some jumbled mumbo jumbo that kind of just detracts from it a little bit. Like I said before, not everything could be G -1, Godzilla -1. Is there another one I don't have much to say? Oh, there's a couple more I don't have much to say. Let's start with this one. Unleash Hell, issue #5. Fuck this shit. Again, I know that I do it to myself. I do like to dip my toes in. This was only a 5-issue miniseries. For some strange reason, I missed out on #4. God forbid I'm not getting the full story here. Maybe issue 4 tied everything together in a way that 5 didn't. I highly doubt it though. So it was good to kind of dip into. The biggest draw for me was having this character Muse involved. I was watching the Daredevil show, so I was curious a little bit. I like the idea of Elektra being Daredevil. It just wasn't worth your time. One of the things I found funny in this was them giving themselves praise at the back of the book. One of the things that has always driven me crazy about working in film and TV is that it's a job. First of all, it's a damn good job. I've had way worse jobs in my life, but it is just a job. There's oftentimes you get on these sets, especially when you work on set, there's this idea at the end of it that we're all a family, And oh my God, there's a lot of tears and people are like, I'm going to miss you. And we've really become close and yada, yada. And that stuff makes me physically nauseous, that kind of thing. We're not a fucking family. I came to collect a paycheck. We had some time together. Yes, you build some friendships and things, some that last, some that don't. But they start doing that in the back of this one too. And I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Like, you've done 5 issues of a fucking Daredevil book. Take a bit of perspective. You know what I mean? Like, just check in a little bit with reality about the way you're talking about this experience. And, like, I've always wanted to do this. You didn't write anything groundbreaking. It's difficult. I understand why people want to kind of talk about their art and they want to kind of share the experience with the people, and maybe they do get something out of it. But as a reader or as someone working in that environment, it always falls kind of like, it makes me groan at the very least. Gorvidal saying, enjoyed Andor. Thanks to you. It was a very pleasant surprise. Yeah. Awesome. I'm really glad you enjoyed it, Gore. It's always the thing of when I recommend stuff that strongly. Of course, there's going to be people that then will go, that guy's a moron. That was a piece of shit. I hated every moment of that, but I do feel really strongly about Andor. I love the story very, very, very much. But I love what the conversations are that are happening out there even more. But the story is just incredible. I actually found a Rogue One magazine at Thirsty's flea market yesterday for like $3 or something. And even that was really great to kind of flip through, remembering the time. It's a collector's edition magazine, remembering the time of when it was coming out. And they had some really good photos and write-ups. They did a couple of page write-up on Cassian Andor in there. Yeah, so I'm really glad that you enjoyed it. Yes, I know exactly what you're laughing at, and it makes me laugh every time because it's really, yes, we're not family. Out of Alcatraz, I won't talk about this one. Again, for some reason, I don't have issue number 2. So far, I've been to 3 comic shops here in town, and none of them have a copy of issue number 2. One of those comic shops being Galaxy Comics, and they usually order a boatload of new issues. So I was kind of surprised that even they didn't have a copy of issue number 2. So it makes me wonder if it somehow didn't get shipped out or something went wrong. I know that there was some issues with image shipping Rasa was talking about potentially, but this is Oni Press. I read this issue anyway because it's such a good book. I wanted to sit and read it. This is such a good book. If you're not picking this up, I would honestly strongly recommend you give it a shot. I'm going to go see Tony at Cover to Cover on Tuesday because I think he's closed on Mondays, to see if maybe he has a copy of issue number 2 still on the shelf. But I really like this book. So this is going to be a limited series as well too. Rasa was saying that because of that, she's not going to pick up the single issues. She's just going to wait for the trade. This story has kind of got my attention in a pretty big way. So I want to stick with it as it's coming out in single issues. Gore Vidal, since you're here, why don't we talk about this one if you're still in the room? I know that you're one of the only, I think you're the only other person I know on YouTube Comic World who is reading this or has read The Killer. There's a new Killer series called Affairs of the State Part 2. This is issue number 1. As with all of this stuff, it's going to be a mini series. I don't know how many issues. So I've been a fan of The Killer since I first discovered the very first series. I remember being surprised every time new books came out because it really worked as kind of one volume. I thought it worked really well. And that's kind of where some of my complaints for this first issue fall. I feel like so far, yes, it's only one issue. It hasn't, yeah, it's a brand new, Gore. So I would say check it out. Since you're a fan of The Killer, I would say check it out to you. I would say that anybody else who hasn't read any Killer, don't start on this one. I don't think that this is super strong so far. There's some moments in here for sure. So the main character is a hired assassin. He does not have a positive outlook on humanity. He doesn't have a positive outlook on much of anything. He's borderline misanthropic, but he does have enough social skills to be able to exist in the world. He just doesn't really care about anybody. So he's kind of isolated himself. And he gets approached for a mission, which is this political assassination. And honestly, in this issue, the political assassination so far is taking the back seat because there's other things that are happening in it. One of them being that, and I'm going to make sure that I don't go too far because I don't want to spoil anything. One of them being that when he comes back to his house, he's found that it's been broken into. After he kind of goes on this first part of this mission, he comes back to his house and finds it's been broken into. When he finds them, he discovers that it's two kids who are from a house somewhere in the kind of surrounding area. And it appears that they've been abused. So I'll just leave it there because then it goes further than that. A lot of the book is narration by the main character. And again, like, as someone who's been reading this book for so long, like, I know how he is as a main character. I know kind of what his thought processes are. So I find myself, even with the previous one, it's sort of like it was enjoyable enough to read. Like, I didn't dislike it, but if I really sit and think about it, I don't think I could tell you too much that I maybe learned new about the character. So I feel like that's where I'm at with this book of like, give us something new. This isn't Batman where you're just going to create 10 billion stories with the same fucking character. Like, with something like this, you got to give us something. So I'm hoping that it'll develop. And like I said, for Gore Vidal, I'd encourage you to buy it. Don't listen to anything I said. Read it and decide for yourself. But for anybody else, honestly, I'd go back to the early. If you can find collections of the early Killer stuff, start there. I would say don't start here. Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. Alcatraz might be reopening because it's the only prison Cheeto Jesus has ever heard of. Yes, I'd heard that they were potentially gonna open. I've never heard Cheeto Jesus before. That's pretty good. I'd heard that they were potentially going to be looking to open Alcatraz again. Seems insane to me. Keeping in the sort of bleaker end of things, I saw this on the shelf when it came out, but my pull list that week, I couldn't add something else to it. Thankfully, there were still copies there when I went back, and I didn't have a huge pull list. I had a couple of books on it, I think, so I grabbed a copy of this. So this is from Mad Cave. Vanishing Point is the series. It's going to be a mini series, and from what I understand, each issue is going to be a standalone. What I found out today that I didn't know was about this writer, Mark Russell. I guess he's the guy that was responsible for the Flintstones book that everybody was shitting their pants over, that I didn't really have any interest in. After reading this, I've got much more of an interest. This is an interesting single issue here. Again, in this kind of world of bleakness, this fits right into that kind of idea, I guess. So the very basic premise is that there's a guy sent out to space to mine this very rare mineral. He's out there on his own. I believe he has to stay out there for a decade, I think is what it was from my memory. If he doesn't get paid anything. If he stays out there the allotted time, he'll get enough money to set his family up for generations potentially, right? So at first he's kind of videoing with his family and everything is kind of going hunky-dory. Surprise, surprise, things don't stay like that throughout the story. And it sort of just kind of goes down this spiral a little bit. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty cool idea. I enjoyed it enough to want to pick up a second issue. Again, it's one that I don't want to talk about too much because I think the journey through the story is a big part of the enjoyment. Yeah, so I don't know, man. I'd say pick it up, and hopefully I don't show. But this is going to be the next issue. I'm trying not to show the last page because I think it might show some stuff. So there's the cover for issue number 2 with the Jetsons on it. And I guess that would make sense if this is a guy who did like the Flintstones and things, that there would be some sort of Jetsons thing or more TV shows. The concrete is literally rotting, but what the heart wants, yeah. insane, more like insanely badass to, to be the first person to get sent back to Alcatraz and try to escape. Another one I really dig is Dust to Dust. Cheeto Jesus. I just call him that orange prick when I talk about him. Even though the blue prick is just as much of a prick. Dust to Dust, issue number 5, J.G. Jones, and then co-written, I think, by Phil Bram. Is that what the credit is? They're just both listed as writers. I really, really enjoy this book. As soon as I open it up and see the art and these sepia kind of tones, it immediately kind of draws me into it. We're getting some backstory of, we're not exactly sure who this military person is, but this is the person that kind of appears to some degree on the front cover of issue number 1 and absolutely on the front cover of issue number 4. We're getting a little bit more about our characters. The sheriff served in the war, but the townsfolk at this point, while they recognize that he served, they have zero respect for him. So much so that 3 of these hillbilly bastards kick the shit out of him until he's kind of rescued by this Sandman type character with the gas mask, who we can see kind of skulking around in the background. So really great story. Again, the basic premise of this one is there's some mysterious deaths happening. People have spontaneously combusted. There's a reporter, photographer that's in town as well too, and she's starting to write about it. So we get some amazing art there of the kind of charred remains. I was saying to Rasa this afternoon that one of the things that I love the most about this is it really has a good grasp on pacing. One of the frustrating things about some books, like Sickness jumps to mind, is the pacing doesn't quite seem to be there. It feels like maybe an editor is needed to kind of help with that pacing. There's still just enough mystery to want to keep you coming back, but I do feel like every single issue I'm getting a little bit more nuggets of information. So I'm kind of amazed by this book. This is going to be one of the top reads of the year, I think, if it continues along this line. So another one I'd probably strongly recommend. Did you see the latest on Doctor Who? It is head scratching. I did not see the latest on Doctor Who. I did see the latest trailer though for Fantastic Four, with not Norrin Rad as Silver Surfer, if I understand that correctly from the outrage online. And I would say that if at any time I understood it, I mean, I guess I always sort of understood it. I stand it. I just always think it's kind of fucking stupid because who gives a shit? But I can see from even from a business standpoint, it just doesn't make sense to me at this point anymore. The Marvel movies, I think, have gone down in viewership over the years now. So it seems weird to if you're gonna want to bring in some fans, the fat bastards like us who read the comics and are fans of them are probably going to come to see it if it's Norrin Rad. I don't know. It's just puzzling. But honestly, that's kind of as much as I've thought about it. I'm more disappointed that Galactus doesn't look like a giant. In my mind, I was really looking forward to, and again, it makes sense because they fucked up Infinity, one of the best characters in the Marvel universe, in my opinion. They did a pretty good job with Kang. I know that Kang is not everybody's favorite. I happen to like Kang. But one of the things I was looking forward with Galactus was this idea of imagine looking at the sky and the sky is filled with maybe this half of Galactus's face, looking down at you or something. That image would have been fucking amazing. And didn't they do it in that shitty, what was it, the Eternals or something? Didn't they have those robots or whatever the fuck they were in that horrible train wreck of a movie in the sky, and they sort of took up the whole space? Yeah, so yes, Chica Server. The Doctor regenerated into, I would say, some sort of animal. He now identifies as a sock. Is that what the doctor turned into? So the last few books are things that I got from Celestials. Thank you, Forgerelli. Celestials, yes. The last few books are things that I got from Lone Star. So I'll start with well, maybe I won't start with that one. I guess I kind of have to at least acknowledge it because this is the reason why I went to Lone Star. So I've had DOMU issue number 3 for way too fucking long. I remember I got it for dirt cheap. I want to say something like $5. It wasn't very much. It was way less than what it goes for online. At the time I bought it, I didn't know that. I didn't know anything about how expensive these books were and how almost impossible it was going to be to ever find books 1 and 2. So they've been on my wish list at Lone Star for a long time. And there's been maybe once or twice where one of the issues has come up for sale. This is the first time since I've added them that both of them came up for sale at the same time. There was a copy of each of them. So based on that and based on how long I've been waiting just to see one of them come up for sale, I had to jump on them. So I got a copy of each. I think they had a couple of copies of issue number 2 maybe. But anyway, so this was this was why I placed the order. While I placed the order, I figured I'd grab a couple of other things. This is probably the smallest order I've ever done from Lone Star. They had another one of the Tundra sketchbook series books available. This is the Charles Vess one. I think at this point I might only need 2 more of these. I love this Tundra sketchbook series. This Charles Vess one is, of course, gorgeous. He does do a little bit of write-ups throughout it as well, too. So kind of talks you through ideas that you're seeing on the page and all these kind of maybe parts of his creative process or whatever. The one that really stood out to me, I mean, a million things stood out to me, but he did a commission for, let's see, a number of years ago. Roger Smith of Funny Business in New York Comics commissioned me to do a wedding gift for one of his customers. This is the sketch done for it. I drew it on the plane to the 1987 San Diego Comic Con. So here's the sketch for it. And then they do have the color version, which I'll show you in a second. So this page here of Swamp Thing and Abby was her name, right? And then here's the color version of it. So beautiful stuff. Tundra books are difficult to find at the best of times. So I have a lot of them kind of bookmarked or on my wish list rather at Lone Star. So yeah, just really great. Such a good book, such a good series. There's a few other books, but these 2 I haven't read yet. So we've got Caliber Presents number 2. James O'Barr is in this one. Tim Vigil is in this one. Dead World is in this one. And since 420 is here, we got our dog whistles here as well too. I'm just kidding, just like you were in your video. I laughed out loud when you said that, by the way. So Gideon's art by Jim O'Barr, Mark Winfrey, Tim Vigil, Tim Tyler, Vince Locke is in here as, of course, Dead World. So I love the Caliber Presents stuff. This was fairly cheap. The earliest issue that I have now, I think I might have 2, 3, and 5 or something, plus some other random later ones, but nice to have some of these early ones. Yeah, and it's Caliber and it's an anthology, so enough said about that there. And then shout out to the one and only Russ Works, who has been an amazing resource over the years here on YouTube. Recently, within the past month or 2, he had left a comment on one of my videos where he was talking about another channel that was focusing on a comic that he did. And of course, now that I'm talking about it, I can't remember the name of that comic. But when I started looking into, when I kind of discovered who he was and I started looking into books that he made, This was something that got reprinted, I think, by Amazing Comics. I don't know if this originally came out by Amazing Comics. Maybe it did. Demon Mask #1, a graphic novella reminiscent. Yeah, no, maybe it did come out just for this. And Russ, I gotta say, man, like, I really, really dig the art in this. I haven't read this one yet. I'm hoping to get into this one this week. There's a real Spain Rodriguez vibe to some of this art in here. Really, really nice looking stuff. You know, like the drapery. So there you go. I sure did. Dan Ellison, hello. Just tuned in and probably can't stay long. Did you really snag Domu from Lone Star? I sure as hell did, man. I sure as hell did. I couldn't believe it, honestly. So yes, this looks great. It's a thick book. This is a thick issue. I don't know how many. It's not quite, well, it's probably pretty close to double. They do call it a graphic novella, I think, in the kind of right up on the inside front cover there. So shout out to Russ Works. And believe it or not, there was a couple of issues of the Frank series that I was missing. I was missing #1 and #2, I think. So they had a copy of issue #1, and I couldn't resist. And then, of course, when it came here, I promptly dropped it on the fucking floor because I'm an idiot. So it got a bit of damage. Yeah, and of course, I mean that with love. Absolutely, absolutely. So this was fantastic to read, of course. So on the inside front cover, we do get a history all the way from the very first drawing of Frank to the cover that ended up as one of the Jim magazine size. That's the one that influenced me the most. That's probably the first time that I picked up Jim as a magazine, was this cover. In school, I wish that I had it. I may have told this before. We had to do a self-portrait. So I did a self-portrait and it was this cover. And I think in the background, I put a mirror so you could see me as the person putting the pencil in Frank's mouth. And I really wish that I still had that. That would have been, I want to say June. No, that would have been Kildonan East. So that would have been high school, probably grade 10, I'm guessing. But this was really great. There's a DVD with some short animated Jim stories, and they do this High Rise Hopper is one of them. Of course, it's his usual kind of psychedelic, something from the world infects Frank, and it causes him to kind of change and distort until it's shot furiously out of his body by his kind of pet savior. But it was a gentle man hog that really caught my attention. Man Hog is the character in the universe where things happen to Man Hog just as they do to everybody else, but Man Hog doesn't deal with it nearly as well as everybody else does. He's always in a state of panic. He's always crying. He always looks incredibly sad as this world just kind of torments and punishes him at every turn. So the chicken comes and kind of torments Man Hog, and it sort of scars him, and he goes running away as the chicken falls down to the tree and laughs. As he kind of runs, he just runs and runs and runs, discovers this little house, and kind of enters the kind of arches into the yard. There's a silhouette of a man. Scaramouche, Scaramouche, can you do the fandango? And he brings him into his world and kind of feeds him, takes care of him, starts to educate him, starts to teach him how to grow a garden, gives him pants, starts to kind of really usher him into a new life as the Man Hog. So they have this, what seems like a long relationship together. The silhouetted human eventually dies and disappears into the bed sheets as a blob of ink. And now he's on his own, left to contemplate existence as he stares out at the universe. One day spots Frank coming and decides to invite him for dinner because he hasn't seen him in, I'm assuming, years. there's a great embrace and come on in and so good to see you and let's catch up and why don't you stay for dinner? What's for dinner, you say? The fucking chicken. I just thought, I again laughed out loud when I got to this last page. To go that whole way for a gag, I think is brilliantly funny. And especially in kind of like the Jim Woodring, Frank universe, there's an extra layer of that's just goddamn hilarious, because there's often this idea with some of his stuff that it's speaking to another level and it's tapping into dreams and all sorts of things, which for sure is absolutely the case. But this is the that was the best story I think I've read in a long time. It was well received. DOMU would be one of many examples of the kayfabe effect. Yes, absolutely. I haven't got it yet. Yeah, I recently rewatched the kayfabe videos. Well, within the past couple of days, I rewatched the kayfabe videos where they're talking about DOMU just to hear them. The one with Tom Scioli specifically, where they're sitting around, the old school ones where they were facing the camera. Really great. I haven't got it yet, but that effect is real. But now you are having that same effect on me. I call it the crack attack. Perfect. Trademarked. Put it on a shirt. And then the other one that I got was Peep Show issue #1. This is the second print of it, but filling in the gaps in the Peep Show collection gradually, because they don't pop up too much. But nice to get my hands on a copy of issue #1. Rereading this again, it really is just it's amazing that you're gonna have the issue #1 of your autobiographical comic, where in that comic you talk about yourself punching your girlfriend and giving her a black eye. It's just, he's not a good person in this, and reading this, yet it's so funny the way that the effect that this had. There's so many things that it deals with. Obviously the characters in there acknowledge that they're characters in a comic, so you have this very cartoony style. It's in a comic. I don't know what's real and what's not real. I assume that not everything is real. That's just my assumption. I think that if I got to know him, maybe more would be real than I would be comfortable with, but that's what it is. There's an acknowledgement of you as the reader. There's all sorts of kind of back and forth that's going on here. And then all of it is gorgeous art. So it was so great to read this again. So RIP to Joe Matt, one of the absolute legends of autobiographical comics. So very happy to have a copy of that one. Gotta find that spot where Ed found DOMU for 50 cents. Oh, really? Hey, crack attack is real hilarious. My most recent crack attack buy was Mansect, and I'm loving it. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, the I always want to call it man meat, but that's not. Face meat, I think, is the new one, which I'm waiting to get my hands on. I can't wait to get my hands on some of that man meat. I mean, face meat. So on to the last book that we'll talk about tonight, the one and only DOMU. Holy shit, was this good. Dan, I think you said you hadn't read it. Is anybody else who's in the chat? Has anybody, Forgerelli 420, have you read DOMU? Holy fuck, is it ever good? In so many different ways. So I think one of the things that I always kind of keep in mind with these translations is the flipping. And when I saw them going through it, I see that they didn't flip. Or did they flip it? I think they did flip this stuff. So there were some pages that were flipped. There were some that weren't, because they were kind of showing some images from the original, I guess, or a collection of the original DOMU. But one of the things, I've never owned DOMU. One of the things that stood out, I love the story taking place in kind of this apartment complex. I love that it sort of, and they say it in the kayfabe thing as well too, and I can absolutely see it. It deals with a lot of stuff that's in Akira. I think he did this one before Akira. Someone will correct me if I'm 100% wrong about that, because I have a feeling that I am. I don't know where in kind of his um what's the fucking word I'm looking for? I don't know where it lands in kind of his bibliography, his oeuvre. But I can see that you might think of these kids who are exhibiting some of these powers as the kids that we see in the Akira universe. So it's kind of fun to read this with that in mind, that maybe this is a precursor before. Okay, yeah, it is before Akira. So I wonder how that is. Oh, all I've read for the last 2 weeks was canon. Oh, amazing. Did he put out is there a new canon out, or have you just been catching up? I barely remember the episodes of CK where they showed it, but it looked so good. Yes, it was before Akira. And of course, I loved Akira. Been looking for DOMU since that video, and it's just so expensive. It's really expensive. Yeah, I'm totally comfortable telling you what I paid. I think it was about $40 American for each of them, which normally would be a hard no from me. But like I said, like you, I've wanted to read this for Conan the Barbarian. Sorry, I thought that said canon. I've wanted to read this for so long. I had the money. We had our income taxes come back, so I did splurge on these. But normally I would stay away from that by a fucking mile, but I just couldn't resist, which is why the order was so small also this time too. So reading it as kind of like a precursor to the Akira universe is a lot of fun, but there's a lot of stuff going on in here that I think it opens it up to all sorts of interpretations. And again, no spoilers or anything. Some of the stuff that really stood out to me, let's see if I can find that drawing. I'm sure it's a drawing that everybody has seen a million times, but I'm going to show it again. Or it's one of the two drawings I'm sure you've all seen a million times. This one here, it's amazing how much that looks like a Jeff Darrow piece. The fact that it's just an image on a blank background, all of the kind of bits and bobs that are on him. There's something about that pose that's very Jeff Darrow. That is unbelievable. Yeah, I think that's a common occurrence on YouTube. There's a lot of YouTubers that have cost us all a lot of money over the years. To be honest, I spend too much on dumb bargain bins and should wisely go for quality like DOMU instead. In my opinion, you did good. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. As much as I love the bargain bin stuff, just like you do, 420, sometimes it's just this, like you said, there's something about spending the money on something that's real quality. I would say it's the same with like the Scoiton stuff that I bought. There's a couple of those books that cost me a little more than I would have liked, but honestly, the quality is so goddamn high. And finishing off a series of books like that Hollow Grounds trilogy, getting that final book, even though it cost a couple of bucks, was well worth the money because I love it so much. So this is kind of our main villain. I don't think that that's a secret. That's far from a spoiler. Anything that you see about this series, he's very much on the forefront. But what doesn't get talked about is kind of the battle that happens with this young girl specifically, who is completely badass. And in the Kayfabe video, they talk about just her mannerisms and how he's able to represent her on the page. You get that sense that she's really, she's fiercely independent. She's not afraid of kind of confronting people. She's kind of comfortable in her own skin. And in this case, she's also comfortable with her powers, because as she sort of scolds him, he decides to psychically throw some rocks at her. And as the Kayfabe guy said, she does a matrix and just pauses that shit in midair and causes it to fall to the ground. And you can see that it's taken a lot out of the old man. So it sort of kind of accelerates from there. There's a series of murders. He's controlling people to some degree where he's able to kind of speak to them. It's unclear if it's all in their head or if there's actually voices that are calling to them. In this second issue, shit gets even more intense. Like I said, I'm trying not to tell you too many spoilers. And that's one thing I would say, that if you do watch the Kayfabe stuff again, just be aware that they tell you the whole damn story. So there's spoilers abound in that whole thing. So just be mindful of that. One of the things that I love about Otomo, and especially in Akira, I love it's like a Jeff Darrow. I love his rubble. I love his destruction. I think it's drawn so well. And honestly, even with the English translations of the sound effects in this, I'm just passing by stuff that I don't want to show you. Even with the English language words, it sorry, give me 1 second here. It doesn't take away from the rubble that's created. Was it in issue number 3? Maybe it was in issue number 3. Oh yeah, here we go. So he's the old man has kind of turned on the gas in some of the apartments. Things start to explode. The complex starts going up in flames, and there's a whole series of pages where everything slows down and we experience all this destruction and things exploding as they are if we were there. There's an ability to kind of put you in the space that is always incredible with like really good cartooning and really good comics. And this one, partially the story had me just sucked in like crazy. But I mean, look at these pages as just again, what I love to do with some of this stuff is just kind of look at it from afar, and it becomes this almost abstract, beautiful piece of art where you see all of that crumbling and all of that sound effects and some images. And it's just relentless because it just kind of keeps going on and on. So good. Really, really great. The only other image that I'll show you, like I said, it's the one that everybody has seen. And it's the downside of having this book in this kind of format. You'd never really get the full effect of it. But this 2-page spread of our old man. And again, like this causes you to stop. You stop dead in your tracks and you soak in this image. So as a storytelling component, it's really, really nice too. But this was such a good read. It feels like this is one like Akira that I would probably go back to a couple of times because I enjoyed reading that so much. There was a couple of other things I was going to potentially talk about with this, but I kind of deciding not to, because again, I don't want to go down too much of a rabbit hole of offering too many spoilers and interpretations of things. There was a couple of pacing moments too, but I've forgotten what those pages were. Yeah, so solid read. Definitely the read of the week, I would say, and probably, again, going to be one of those where that's going to make a list at the end of the year, just how fucking brilliant that was. Let's back up here. What did I miss? Just what I've spent on Hollow Press stuff is enormous. Yeah, the Hollow Press stuff is insane. Yeah, I really splurged on the Raw magazine. Oh boy, Raw magazines, plural. But they were so much less than the going rate. I couldn't pass them up. That's amazing, Dan. I remember seeing some when I went to the Beguiling in Toronto. They had a bunch. I think it was at the Beguiling. They had a bunch up on above the door, the front door, and just even seeing them in a space was amazing. But like you said, they were so expensive, even just for one issue. I recently listened to the ZK vids on Domu. So good. Love how they go into minutia, like when she's crying and that fireman gets torn in half. That moment is an absolute stunner. It's such a good fucking moment because the look on his face, it had me confused of like, is this the old man all of a sudden? But of course it's not. It's a fireman going to, his last expression was one of like, hey, I'm a friend. Don't worry about it. I'm here to help you. Such a good goddamn moment. Otomo is the undisputed master of rubble. Domu looks beautiful. Why don't they reprint it? Goddamn it. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Reprint it bigger. And I'm assuming I know why, because they're doing this Otomo collection stuff, because I think Domu has been reprinted already in one of those books. So his estate, or is he still alive? I'm realizing I don't even know. I think he's dead at this point, long dead. So the estate owns the rights to it. Otomo Akira. Let's see. No, he's still alive. I apologize. I've killed you in the YouTube. You are aged 71, so yes, he is still alive. My apologies, to the estate of Otomo. But I'm assuming that's why it's not being reprinted. My young dumbass never realized back then too the new officer on the case was in danger of being manipulated and committing suicide like his predecessors. Dark Horse was killing it back then with that format. The Mobius releases and Euro stuff like Dylan Dog, now all super rare and valuable. Absolutely. Akira Tetsuo. Yeah, so that's everything that I read this week, I believe. What do I got coming up this week to read? I don't know, because I've got books all over the place here. On the floor over here that you can't see, on the shelf up here, on a box over there. So we'll keep reading stuff, and we'll see you next weekend. So I'll spend some time putting some links in the description. So if you're watching in the future, or if you've already watched, just come and check tomorrow if you want to find any of the stuff we've talked about, specifically the music and things. Come back and click some links. Right on, everybody. Take it easy, and we'll talk to you.